be honest, there's no one answer to that question, all right? Because the way we learn as human beings, multifaceted, multidimensional. So there's no one answer. But if I to look at the research, the prevailing research, there are two general ideas out there. One, research postulates that female students may outperform their male counterparts due in part to the fact that they have positive role models right in front of them. Real life, reach out and touch role models where we have approximately, and it's not unique to the Trinidad and Tobago situation, but approximately 75% of teachers globally are female. So right in front of our female students, they have models, positive role models that are educated, um, self-reliant, and successful that they can model themselves after. However, boys do not have the same kinds of opportunities to tap into positive male role models in the classroom setting. All right. If you take that together with the fact that in the wider society, positive role models tend to be in the areas of sports and entertainment, etc., then we see why our male students may not be looking at academics as a way of modeling their behaviors. Um, I could go further. I could go further and look at some of the research coming out of the Caribbean Examination Council, and we see the Examination Council (CXC) drawing on research done by Michael Kimball, right, who looks at the learning behaviors in the classroom. And Denzel, you will remember that the behaviors that teachers celebrate in the classroom setting are basically female characteristics. Let me, I'm going outside there and saying that. All right. So the ability to be quiet, the ability to read for extensive periods of time, the ability to be nice and thoughtful and community orientated. Those abilities, by and large, which, and I'm saying traditionally inculcated in our girls, traditionally. I'm not saying that that is the way now, but certainly because we celebrate those behaviors in the classroom setting, Denzel, we recognize why boys may not be enthused in the whole idea of education, because then they will need to pattern themselves after what we call girly behavior. So the strive for academic excellence is really, can be seen by some of our male students as a effeminate pursuit.
Okay.
Out of evil cometh good. All right. Out of this COVID-19 pandemic, because of the remote teaching and learning experiences that we have to do for um, emergency teaching and learning, we recognize that the infusion of ICTs, of internet information and computer technologies, was a big thing. It happened as a necessity, of course, but um, and we know for a fact that our male students are drawn towards technology. So the infusion of technology in today's curriculum, even because of the pandemic, we will see an upsurge of the interest in education from our male students. All right. Also, we I see our many of our teachers are more in touch with the fact that they have to scaffold for boys, scaffold for the male students, um, put things in place, and they have to be more aware of their gender biases. So therefore, we see even our female students. So that's why even though they have the role models in front of them, it is more important to have good models in front of our students rather than we overcompensate and do a whole drive towards bringing men into the system. That is a good thing. That will always be a good thing, Denzel. But certainly, we, because of our training in education, because of what we know in education studies, because of our professional development, Denzel, teachers, regardless of their gender, are now able to scaffold for what we know causes male underachievement in our education system. All right. So currently, in our education system, there is the teaching under the Health and Family Life Education Program, the concept of gender. You will appreciate that we in Trinidad and Tobago, while we are guided by the UNESCO document that speaks towards the teaching of sexuality in the school system, we will not embrace all the components of that because of the nature of our society, right? So you will not see in the school system the idea of teaching the non-binary genders, teaching the fact that um, persons be may see themselves not as their birth sex, but may be a differently assigned gender, etc., etc. I don't want to get too technical into that region, but certainly the Ministry of Education have a program in place currently. Um, but Denzel, even though they are putting things in place, they are, in my estimation as an educator, they are not taking it as seriously as they should.
Okay.
Um, I can explain. Let me explain what I mean. Presently, that health and family life education program is being taught by volunteers. So teachers all across the country recognizing in the secondary school system I'm speaking about, recognizing the worth of the system, the that gender based violence, the upsurging gender based violence, for instance, and needing to step into the gap between the home, what is happening at the home level, because really the gender teaching of gender is supposed to be taught by the institution of the home,
Yeah.
scaffold by the institution of the church, not the school, right? Not the school. But we recognize we have to step into the gap. And but what the Ministry of Education, they have a fantastic program, but they did not put or they have not put all the scaffolds, all the supporting mechanism in place. So we have volunteers throughout the secondary school system doing this program. Instead of having a formal training program, instead of equipping teachers, instead of assessing teachers to teach this program, which is extremely important. The importance of it cannot be lost on anyone. But the ministry has to go a step further than the good program they have in place now, Denzel, to put the added measures in place to ensure its success. So as an educator, this my responsibility in a classroom setting, for instance, will be different from yours as a parent. So let me take it from the role of an educator. As an educator, I will want to model to my male students or to all my students the good gender equality traits. So we know that children learn by imitation. They whatever they see you do, they try to copy themselves after you, and we want to let persons know that despite our own assumptions, we are looking at a gender neutral society. We're looking at gender neutrality in our behaviors. We are judging persons as human beings, as you said it, as human beings, and giving them, because there can be no equality if persons aren't given the same responsibility, right? Because if I have all the responsibility placed on me, and we can both exercise the same options, then you are at an advantage, and that is not what is meant. But well, I hope not. That is not what we are striving for as a society, for gender equality. So that would be my first point of depart here. I will also, as an educator, not connect gender to the ability of a person at all. So I will not say that, okay, boys are louder than girls, or that the boys should go out to play and the girls should stay inside, and they are quieter and they are more docile, and that only boys can play the football and girls are supposed to stay in and read for quiet time, that kind of thing. I will not do that as an educator. I will have a gender neutral, all my activities will be gender neutral. So I will also not model bad behavior, because if we are looking at gender equality and we are not equating gender with ability, then I will not always call my boys to move the desk in the class. So you know we do that as a society. We say we are looking at gender neutrality and equality, but every time we have a heavy load to move, we call the man in the room. We want to fix the desk, we call the man in the room. You understand? That is not equal. That is not equal at all. So and we cannot have it both ways. We cannot be special and equal at the same time. That's not equality. Again, and I'm talking about equality, not equity. That's a totally different conversation, right? Again, I will look at my text as a teacher. So I will recognize that history, I'm a history teacher, history social studies, and I will recognize and I will acknowledge to my class that basically, for all intents and purposes, history was written by men, and men who were in part of the ruling class. So history is skewed. And I will look for examples of where women have excelled. So Queen of Scots, etc., bringing those strong female personalities who would have excelled and led their various countries through hard times, difficult times. Look at even our current leaders. Look at how our president would have, under fire as a female, excel under fire and display that grace without capitulating to the negative stereotypes that were in the society just recently, right? So again, we will recognize our back. And fourthly, my fourth point will be to teach students to be aware of their personal biases. We all have biases. What we have to do is recognize them and not buy into them. So we will not buy into people who are different than us. We will not buy into treating our females differently just because they are females, etc. We really, if we are speaking about gender equality, we really have to be deliberate about the whole thing.
Okay.
Yes,
So on
as
that.
a I will do that as a teacher,
Okay.
right? Again, I'm coming as an educator and tying back into the um, Human Family Life Education program from the Ministry of Education. Some of the issues we deal with under that umbrella will be again self and interpersonal relationships. How do we treat each other as human
Right.
beings then? Right? Um, with all the gender biases, regardless of where we are on the spectrum. Um, how do we deal with sexuality, not sex? So I'm not talking about the use of condoms and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. No, I'm talking about sexuality. How do we treat with sexuality and sexual health? Right? That is an area that we teach under the HFLE program, that we teach our students, so that when they are out in the wider society, they can traverse these various questions and deal with them adequately. The whole idea of eating and fitness, because while you may not want to tie it into gender equality, you know that the a fit mind, fit body, that we can it has bearing on how we see the external world, right? And the whole managing, the fourth point would be the managing of our environment themselves. So that those areas are the broad areas under which we as teachers educate and put our students in touch with knowledge, that when they come out into the wider society, that they will be able to deal with those situations that the wider society, that life throws at them, they'll be able to deal with it adequately, right? Yes.
And
As the first vice president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, I am aware that our association, TUTA, actually we have a, a organ of the association, a committee in our association that deals with those issues specifically. We have moved from the committee for the status of women, Denzel, to the committee for gender issues. The reason for that is that we as a society, men and women, are moving closer to the realization that we are human, that we are human beings, and our issues will impact on each other, right? So we are moving away from why, and even the language that we use. So you won't hear again, or you're hearing in at a lower frequency, the talk about women violence against women. What you will hear is gender-based violence, because it is a realization that both men and women suffer the same condition and for the same reasons. And we as a society must put scaffolding in place. We must put support mechanisms in place that will allow, regardless of the gender, will allow our citizens to be able to come out of those situations, so that we as a society have the ability to heal, right? If we continue focusing on just one gender or the other, then we will recognize, as we transition as a society with multiple instances along that spectrum of maleness, masculinity, and femininity. As we traverse that spectrum, you will recognize that there will be a lot of gaps. So, in order to deal with it in a holistic manner, it is absolutely necessary that we treat each other as human beings and put the necessary scaffolding in place so that regardless of the gender, you will be covered and supported by the society. I would just like to close by saying that this is really a very good opportunity as human beings to address our humanness. Really, we really have to stop looking at the whole idea of gender in binary terms. We have to stop looking at and while I'm not advocating any kind of sexuality thing at all, that's not what I'm doing at all. I'm putting out there that we cannot see it as the advancement of women issues as a demasculine, a plug against male issues. It cannot be a win-lose situation. It cannot be. We have to stop when we highlight male issues. It cannot be, or empowerment. It cannot be seen as demoting women, because that they can both exist simultaneously. Both the empowering of our male persons in our society and the female persons in our society can happen simultaneously. It's not a finite space at the top. So if we as a society take that approach, not be binary in our conversations, then we will be able to go a lot further. I would like to at this time applaud you and your organization on behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association for this initiative. Again, like Father's Day, Denzel, International Men Day go quietly. That is a secret, and it goes without any fame and bravado. Nothing happens for that day. It might be mentioned in passing in a news commentary, but what you are doing to highlight this issue and highlight the issue of gender equality, inequality is a very good step in the right direction. So hats off to you, sir.
Thank you very much.